Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Friday. Thank you all for coming. My name is Sophie Young. For those of you who haven't met yet, I'm the program manager for TCC at the Strategic Growth Council. And we're really excited to share the Round 4 TCC application with you all today, which, as you all have heard, provides a first of its kind investment framework for disadvantaged, unincorporated, and rural communities. We've been really inspired by all the impact that the program has had in the 26 communities we've invested in so far. And last year's climate budget will fund us for 3 more rounds over the next 3 years, which will enable us to fund at least 20 more communities. And we're especially excited today to fully expand eligibility for implementation grants to unincorporated areas. As some of you might know, we went through an extensive research and consultation process over the past 2 years, and we convened a working group of community-based organizations, residents, state entities, local and regional partners to develop an investment framework, which we took to our council meeting last summer, June 2021, and which we integrated into this round of the guidelines. And during that process, the stakeholders really brought to light the gaps in data representation for unincorporated and rural communities in our statewide data sets, also for basic infrastructure and in water and wastewater, and overall capacity and technical assistance. And last year, we also received a Pew Charitable Trust grant to partner with the Leadership Council for Justice and Accountability to further develop ways that we can address these gaps in this Round 4 guidelines. So in response, as you'll hear today, our program developed our own TCC mapping tool that provides data representation to unincorporated communities using a policy link methodology, which is also set out, explained on that mapping tool. And we've also added additional flexible options for unincorporated communities to self-identify and make themselves eligible for our program. In addition to address the basic infrastructure needs, we added this as a policy priority, but we also added a 10% cost allowance for basic infrastructure. And thirdly, we expanded our technical assistance program to all eligible disadvantaged unincorporated communities, not just for implementation, but we also expanded it to planning and also to capacity building services in between the application periods. So we really hope that these measures will help improve access to our program's funding and give additional tools to bring investments to support communities' way of quality of life. And we'd really like to emphasize that this will continue to be a work in progress that we hope you all can play a part in as you have over the last couple of years. We will continue to incorporate feedback to improve access with each update to our funding guidelines. And we welcome any feedback to our program at any time. And also to note, this is our first pilot with this new eligibility. So we recognize it may be imperfect, and we are hoping to learn from this round, and we will continue to monitor how we can improve these in the upcoming years. So today you'll hear more from the technical assistance providers, our team, past TCC grantees, and our state and local community partners. So thank you everyone for your thoughtful work in helping us to think through how to expand these opportunities. And we really look forward to our conversations online today and really look forward to continuing them in person soon. Thank you. I'll pass it back to Jerry.
Great, thank you, Sophie. So a couple of housekeeping items before we begin. It's getting harder to talk the later in the day it gets. This session will be recorded and posted via the TCC website. If you have any tech issues, please send a direct message in the chat to our DOC colleague, Nicole Cartwright, who will be answering some of those tech questions if they come up. Also, we encourage you all to, as questions come up, drop them in the chat. We will be working behind the scenes. We have a couple of staff that will be responding to those questions directly, and we'll try to get those answered as they come up. In case we don't get to your question, we're recording all these questions and we'll try to respond. Actually, we will respond via email if we don't get to your question during the session. So with that, we'll move on to the agenda. So we'll discuss the TCC program overview, goals and principles, as well as we'll talk to important deadlines for the application process. As Sophie mentioned, we have our TA provider, application TA provider, who's on this call, and will also present an overview of the application technical assistance provided for round 4. And then finally, we'll have an opportunity to hear from Porterville Unified School District, who is a grantee from round 3, who will answer any questions you may have. They'll give an overview of their projects and then answer any questions in the breakout rooms where you can ask any questions directly to them. So with that, let's get this presentation started. So before we begin going into all these detailed slides, we'll give a brief background and the overview of the TCC program and goals. So the California Strategic Growth Council is a cabinet-level committee tasked with coordinating state agency activities aimed at supporting the planning and development of sustainable communities. The mission of the council is to coordinate and work collaboratively with public agencies, communities, and stakeholders to achieve sustainability, equity, economic prosperity, and quality of life for all Californians. Furthermore, the California Strategic Council is committed to achieving racial equity in the work in which all people of California can live in healthy, thriving, and resilient communities, regardless of race. So the Strategic Growth Council administers the Transformative Climate Communities Program in partnership with the California Department of Conservation, who again is also on this call and will be presenting with us. TCC funds community-driven proposals and is structured to provide existing residents and stakeholders with the tools and resources to drive change. TCC also makes significant investments to support the deployment of multiple integrated climate strategies and projects carried out through strong partnerships at the local level and with the state. So to date, the program has invested over $230 million in 26 communities with implementation grants ranging between $10 and $66 million, and then planning grants ranging between $100,000 and $200,000. So the Strategic Growth Council administers, again, implementation and planning grants. As far as implementation grants for round 4, we have 3 awards at $35 million each. Again, funding project proposals that include multiple coordinated projects aimed at reducing greenhouse gas emissions and achieving community benefits. Typically, these run with a 5-year completion period, followed by 1 year of performance and outcome evaluation. And then the other kind of branch of this are the planning grants. There are 4 awards for round 4 at $300,000 each. And then again, these are meant to support planning activities in disadvantaged communities. We also prepare communities for future TCC grants or other resilience implementation funding. And then these are typically 2-year grant term with the option to extend on a case-by-case basis. Also, we will speak a little bit more of this in detail, but would like to take the opportunity here to note that both of these grants have distinct requirements, which we will again talk to a little bit further in this presentation. So here we have a map for implementation grants. TCC has awarded 8 implementation grants across the state since 2018, again with grants ranging between $10 and $66 million. And the total number of projects within these awarded sites ranging anywhere between 10 to 20 projects. Noting that all of the round 3 implementation grantees were former planning grantees. And then on the right here, we show images of some of the work that's been done to date. The next slide, we have an image of planning grants, the maps for highlighting the planning grants across the state. TCC has awarded 26 planning grants to date in both rural and urban areas for around $100,000 to $200,000 each. And then on the right, we have an image of a participatory budgeting process in Watts Rising. Watts Rising is a round 1 implementation grantee. We like this image because it shows a powerful planning process that resulted in community prioritized projects. Before I hand this off, we just want to encourage you to visit the TCC website resources page, which has full summaries of the previous implementation grantees and links to their project websites for further examples. So now that we've given you a quick and brief background, I want to pass it off to Brian from the Department of Conservation. Brian.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Jerry. And thank you everyone for being here with us today. You're going to get a lot of information. This program can be really complicated and there's a lot of different elements to it. the application can be daunting. We're going to do our best to orient you to the requirements and resources we have available. But our program is not just this extremely complicated element. It's also some really foundational principles that we use to inform the rest of the program. So I want to talk to you just about what we're here for and how it's set up. And this is it. This is really where it starts. We're looking at a place-based program that connects multiple sustainability investments with project planning. So it's people, projects, and place. We really genuinely want you to come together and share your model for what you need in your community. And then we look at the strategies, threshold requirements, how your project can be set up within the TCC framework based off of these principles. And so a lot of what I'm going to show you, no, you can go to the next one. So a lot of what I'm going to show you is more relevant to the implementation grants because there's so much more complexity there. But we do have the two grant types. So we wanted to start with the simpler one and just note that planning grants have their own requirements, but also their own opportunities. So each planning grant is designed to allow you to do capacity building activities and to pursue planning and project development for these same scopes of work in your area. You only need to have one TCC transformative element and a collaborative stakeholder structure. We'll go over that in more detail. But again, this is really just about giving you the opportunity to build up your capacity and line yourself up for further opportunities and further funding, either through TCC or other programs. And so for both programs, really it starts with community. Applicants to TCC form a partnership and work with residents, leaders, and organizations to develop a community vision. That vision informs the rest of the program, how projects are selected, and how the work is conducted through the life of the grant. The collaborative stakeholder structure is a core component of the program, but we don't expect every community to organize itself in the same way. So this is really the opportunity for you to put down your coalition and the vision you have for what your community should look like. And we do use this to govern how decisions are made in the program and how projects can best fit a community. So we do want to hear from you. With that in mind, participants then select projects that build resilience and improve livelihoods in ways that are meaningful to the people in the community. Every grant includes multiple projects within the project area, which work together to implement that community vision. There's a lot of project types, and each project has their own requirements, but they're also flexible. So if you have a vision and a strategy, we want to hear from you, and our staff and our PA partners are here to work with you to try to make it work. I did want to give some examples of what this might look like using strategies from our program as well as other things that we see. So for example, something we've heard about is an interest in renewable energy and energy sustainability. So we have a new community microgrids option. It's a strategy that can be pursued and paired with solar PV and renewable energy development for community energy independence. Our affordable housing strategy has a rural component with flexibility for different types of connectivity, different types of housing densities and constructions. We have transit access and accessibility programs that include a wide range of activities that people might want to pursue. And all of our projects have an opportunity to include health and well-being, different types of work that may be relevant to your community. And then the next thing I wanted to note is that we do have a requirement for basic infrastructure, access to, so that's water, wastewater, access to regional services and or job centers. In our work to listen to some of the rural communities and unincorporated communities, it was identified that this would be a challenge, and we've done our best to work with people to make that program work for them. So we do have a 10% allowance from the TCC funds to do water infrastructure upgrades or connectivity to make it more sustainable and be able to bridge the gap between what may exist, what you need for your project. And then in any case, as long as a project can demonstrate these features through the end of the TCC program, other programs or projects could be incorporated in. And like I said, we do have sustainable housing, transportation, and active transportation projects that could be integrated in your grant if that's a barrier. If that doesn't do it, we recognize that there are communities who will ultimately be excluded by this, and we don't want to make light of that. And our hope is that planning grantees potentially could look for other opportunities, and we're committed to working with our TA partners to make sure that you can pursue the projects that are relevant to your community. Finally, we have the 6 transformative elements that are part of every implementation grant, and up to 1 can be part of the planning grant, or minimum of 1 is part of the planning grant. And these are really built in to entrench the community focus into every element of the work. The 3 you see here have their own individual components of the funding and are really focused on community participation and access in different ways. All of the transformative elements are meant to ensure that to further the transformative potential of the investments and ensure meaningful benefits reach existing residents and stakeholders. Yeah. And then the next 3 that you'll see are integrated into the program, but are integrated into the program rather than consisting of their own project plans. So all of our projects and work has a climate adaptation and resilience component. We have a set aside for data collection and indicator tracking, which is both used as a tool to assist the projects in their quantification methodologies and other program needs, as well as to collect data and feedback for us to improve the program, to make sure it's working effectively. Finally, implementation grants require a 50% leverage match to bring in additional investment that we can catalyze through the program. We've seen that using our collaborative stakeholder structure and by grouping our projects together, we're able to bring in additional funding, and that gets integrated into the community vision and has a bigger impact than it might otherwise. Leverage funding can be kind of tricky, but we just want to note a couple basic things about it. Fundamentally, the concept of leverage for us is that it can come from a variety of sources, but it needs to be committed to the project and integrated into committed to the area and timeline and integrated into the overall projects and the community vision. So it's a challenge if somebody has existing funding that they want to apply to the project. If it's standalone funding for ongoing activities, it's usually not eligible. But if you have existing funds or activities or in-kind services that you're providing that you want to bring to bear on the project, and you're really making it part of the community vision and connecting it to the TCC process, that can work. So if you have questions about funding availability, leverage opportunities, things like that, definitely reach out and submit with your TA application. And that's really it. That's sort of the overall vision of the program. And we really do think that we're seeing transformative change happen in these communities. We think our program helps catalyze a common vision with integrated projects, lasting partnerships, and real impact. And we do want to see one final time what sustainability and climate resilience and transformation look like for your community. This is a picture of my hometown that one person imagined. But yours is going to look different, and we are excited to see it. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to my colleagues at SGC who can tell you more about the details of the program. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. And hi, everyone. My name is Jennifer. I'm with the TCC team from the SGC side. And next, we'll take a look at the application overview and timeline. In this section, we will describe eligibility requirements for applicants and project or planning areas, walk through the key application components and requirements, and provide an overview of the application timeline as well as technical assistance opportunities. So who is eligible to apply? Eligible applicants include, but are not limited to the ones on this slide. Applications must include a minimum of 2 co-applicants, including a public agency as a co-applicant, which includes tribal governments. And the lead applicant must be one that demonstrates sufficient financial and administrative capacity to administer the grant. As described before, a core component of the program is the collaborative stakeholder structure. So a range of entities are eligible, but no single entity. As discussed before, TCC. Does everyone hear me okay?
Yeah, Jennifer, we can hear you.
This is great. As discussed before, TCC is a place-based program with investments concentrated in a single neighborhood. So applicants need to define a project area that is contiguous and covers less than 5 square miles for implementation grants. Here are requirements for areas that are located in incorporated communities or federally recognized tribal territories. At least 51% of the area must be within census tracts amongst the top 25% of disadvantaged census tracts per calendar screen from LEPA, or conversely be located within federally recognized tribal boundaries. And the remaining 49% or less of the project area needs to meet the same requirements or be a low-income community defined by.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Okay. Let's try. I do. Is it still not great if I talk really closely into the mic?
Yeah, you kind of sounded like you were mumbling, and I did not hear one thing you said like seconds ago.
Okay, but it's better now if I speak like this.
Yes.
That's better, yeah.
Okay, great. I'll just be really close to the mic. I think my fan is going, the computer fan, but I can back up just this to the last couple of points.
Yes, please.
So at least 51% of the area of the project area or planning area needs to be within census tracts among the top 25% of disadvantaged census tracts according to Cal EnviroScreen's 3.0 or 4.0 versions, or conversely be located within federally recognized tribal boundaries. And the remaining 49% or less of the project area needs to meet those same requirements or be a low income community defined by Assembly Bill 1550. And in this new round, disadvantaged unincorporated communities are now also eligible for TCC grants. As we've mentioned, the eligibility criteria for unincorporated communities differs slightly from the criteria for on the previous slide. Mostly it's the methods for determining whether a community is disadvantaged that differs. In order to address the lack of data representation in these communities, we are accepting 4 methods to determine eligibility in unincorporated areas. And a community only needs to meet one of these 4 criteria. The first is similar to before, being located within the top 25% of disadvantaged census tracts according to Cal EnviroScreen, and at the same time being designated as a disadvantaged unincorporated community by the local agency formation commission. Second, the project or planning area is an eligible location per our TCC mapping tool, which has been updated, and we'll cover a little bit more in a little bit. And third, the project area within the planning area is a previous TCC planning grant that will also qualify. And the final option is to self-identify as a disadvantaged unincorporated community and justify that designation with local data that identifies things like population characteristics and density at a building density at a neighborhood level. And we're really open to working with applicants on what this local data could look like. So we've updated the TCC mapping tool to combine the data layers that you see here with program requirements to help communities determine their eligibility. We also have a story map and a 13-minute video tutorial posted on our website, each of which walk through how to use the tool. And the technical assistance providers will also work with grantees to identify eligible areas and create those project boundaries. Again, we want to highlight that all federally recognized tribal territories are eligible, and all disadvantaged unincorporated communities could be eligible if they are if they're able to justify their designation with a neighborhood level assessment of population characteristics, environmental burden, and building density. For the application, applicants will use our templates to submit a work plan, budget, and set of narrative responses for each project and plan. The partner organization responsible for leading each project or plan can take the lead on completing that portion of the application. Applicants will also submit readiness documentation and letters of support as required and based on the project type. And planning grant applications are much less intensive, including a single budget, work plan, and set of narrative questions. There are some additional implementation grant thresholds that TCC program staff will first evaluate for those applications. These are based on eligibility and TCC program requirements. For example, a partnership agreement is required for collaborative stakeholder structures. Applicants also need to select at least 3 strategies and propose at minimum 3 projects for implementation grants. The 3 projects need to be considered what we call quantifiable and ready for implementation, as well as comprise of at least 50% of the total requested grants. And for TCC, quantifiable just means that the California Air Resources Board has a methodology for quantifying greenhouse gases for that type of activity. And ready means that the projects meet requirements for CEQA, site control, and permitting. I want to briefly pause here for just like a recap of the planning versus implementation grants, because I know this is a lot of information. I won't say it all again, but just pause here for us to take a look. And the priority policies listed under the implementation grants section to the right will be covered next. And with that, I will hand it off to Bo from our team to cover some other important application information along with the priority policies. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Jennifer. Can I get a quick sound check? Can everyone hear me clearly?
Sounds great, Bo.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jerry and Jennifer. So my name is Bo. I'm going to be going over some of the TCC policy priorities in round 4, the impact, eligibility, and evaluation. Some of them are required and some offer incentive points. Excuse me. As mentioned earlier, applicants must demonstrate that residents in the proposed TCC project area have existing access or develop plans for basic water supply and wastewater services, as well as transit connectivity to regional service hubs and major job centers through affordable, clean transportation projects. TA providers will support applicants in meeting these requirements through their proposed projects. The applicants must demonstrate that TCC proposals are consistent with all relevant land use plans, including climate action plans, zoning, building density requirements, design guidelines, and applicable goals, policies, and programs. This is demonstrated by submittal of a letter from the local jurisdiction's planning department or public works department describing the proposed TCC project's consistency with all relevant plans. Applicants from cities with planned high-speed rail station along the initial Silicon Valley to Central Valley line must include in the TCC project area a multimodal connectivity to the high-speed rail station area. If there are any proposed affordable mixed income housing, that connectivity and accessibility to the high-speed rail station area. There are 2 additional policy incentives for pro-housing and air pollution reduction and mitigation, which can earn applicants an additional 5 points each. TCC will provide incentives to applicants that have implemented or proposed actions to reduce localized point sources of pollution in their TCC project areas and jurisdiction. Our program is required by legislation to provide incentive points to applicants in jurisdictions that receive Department of Housing and Community Development's pro-housing designation. And that incentivizes policies that would facilitate sustainable housing production and the reduction of vehicle miles traveled. Any jurisdiction can earn these points. The pro-housing policy incentive will not apply to applications located in federally recognized tribal boundaries, and the TCC program will provide maximum points in this category for those applications. Additionally, there are examples guidance for both incentives listed in guidelines appendices, which can earn applicants these points. And this slide goes over the scoring criteria. Each application will be evaluated based on its vision and objectives, demonstrated capacity to implement the proposal, and transformative elements. Planning grants will also be evaluated on the project's proposed and pro-housing policy incentive. The application thresholds and full scoring criteria are listed in the round 4 guidelines. And this is the application timeline. Free technical assistance is provided to support applicants throughout the application process. All implementation grant applicants are required to receive free third-party technical assistance to ensure that questions are answered consistently, feedback is given equitably, and the greenhouse gas estimates are completed uniformly. Tribal communities and unincorporated communities are also eligible for application technical assistance for planning grants. To be connected to the technical assistance providers, please fill out a simple form that is available on our website, and it will be emailed to all registrants after this meeting. And we'll also throw that in the chat as well. There is no deadline for tribal communities and unincorporated areas to request technical assistance for either type of grant, but we encourage you to submit the survey as soon as possible so they have sufficient time to work with the TA providers. Filling out the survey is not a firm commitment to applying. It will just start the process of scheduling an intake call to help you decide whether this program is a good fit for you. All implementation grant applicants will submit a pre-proposal by April 22nd to help the applicant, TA providers, and SGC assess whether applicants are on track to meet the threshold requirements by the application deadline, and to identify areas where additional support is needed. The pre-proposal will not influence application evaluation. For those who choose not to receive planning grant technical assistance, a simple planning grant interest survey is due May 16th. The final application submission deadline is July 1st, 2022, and round 4 TCC awards will be adopted by the council on October of 2022. Back to you, Jerry.
Great, thank you, Bo. So yeah, we've gone over a lot of the TCC program background goals. Let's now transition over. We have a few members of the team providing application TA here on the call with us. So with that, let's transition over. You have the floor.
All right, thank you, Jerry. So welcome, folks. My name is Richard Prance. I'm with Castellano Advisors and part of the technical assistance team here for TCC Round 4. And so as we go to the overview for technical assistance, as Bo mentioned, all TCC implementation grant applicants are required to use state-provided technical assistance. So it's imperative that you fill out the survey as soon as possible. The deadline is next Friday, but for tribal and unincorporated communities, there is no deadline. But again, as Bo mentioned, please fill it out as quickly as possible just so that you can get in the queue and so that we as a team have a clear sense of what the need is so that we can allocate resources accordingly. For folks who are planning on applying for a planning grant, then some of you are eligible, as Bo mentioned again, to apply for technical assistance. So again, if you are eligible or just interested, please fill out that survey so that you can get in the queue and we can schedule an intake call and talk through what your needs are. So with that, I'll go ahead and introduce who we are as technical assistance team. So as I mentioned, I'm with Castellano Advisors. We're the lead TA provider, and then we're also a workforce development advisor on the project. We're also working closely with CivicWell, formerly the Local Government Commission, and ARAP, who are going to be lead TA providers here. One of the 3 firms listed up top in that slide, so Castellano Advisors, CivicWell, or ARAP, will be your main point of contact as we are working through the application development process. So just note that we'll be one of the folks who will be your primary points of contact. We also have, as you can see here on the slide, a suite of subject matter experts who will be able to lend assistance to all of the TA recipients. So that includes enterprise community partners, who will be working as the housing advisors, community development resources group, who you'll hear from a little bit later about the greenhouse gas quantifications, California Coalition for Rural Housing, who's on this call today, and I'll pause in a moment to just let them say hi. They'll be rural housing providers. The National Indian Justice Center will be our tribal advisor. California Relief and Farallon Strategies will also be working on urban greening and climate advisors, respectively. So with that, I'll just pause for the California Coalition for Rural Housing team to say hi.
Hi, everyone. My name is Andrea Solis. I am the Director of Technical Assistance Programs from the California Coalition for Rural Housing, otherwise known as CCRH. we are the lead on the rural housing side of these things. We have also been the TA provider for the AHSC application program, which is another SGC program. And we're really excited to be able to help out all the applicants in this TCC program. Looking forward to working with you.
Great. All right. So let's talk a little bit about process here. So the first step, as we mentioned, and I will mention again because it is super important, is to fill out the technical assistance survey. Please do your best to answer all the questions. I don't know, I'm not sure, it's unclear, are all acceptable responses, just to be clear. But please go ahead and fill out the survey to the best of your ability. And we will then follow up within about 3 or so business days, just depending on the volume of applicants that are, or the volume of responses that are coming in. And so we'll set up a screening call to talk through what your responses were, where there might be any gaps or things that still need to be fleshed out a little bit, to talk through eligibility requirements, talk through project descriptions, and then get a sense of where you might need help as part of the project. And then we will, after those intake calls, go ahead and match you up with one of the TA providers. So like I mentioned, either Estelano Advisors, CivicWell, or ARUP will be your main point of contact. And then we'll also plug in other groups, just depending on your specific technical assistance needs. Some of the subject matter experts there. Everyone is going to be required to use our team for GHG quantifications, so for the greenhouse gas quantifications, and we'll talk about that a little bit in just a little bit down the line here, but we'll make sure that you all get matched up with the appropriate team. And then the last step before we launch into application development is going to be developing a work plan. So based on the intake call and the survey responses, we'll say, okay, this is where it looks like we'd be the best value add for your project. And these are the folks who are poised to help you out as you go through the application development process. So we'll give you kind of a high level sense of what we think it'll take. We'll give it to you so you can take it back to your team and tweak it so that you are able to kind of fill in timelines that meet the goals and objectives of both the lead applicant and any partners. And then we'll use that as our guideposts as we're delivering the actual technical assistance and working together to submit the application. And with that, let's talk through what technical assistance might look like. So we provided kind of a menu of options here. As I mentioned before, GHG quantifications is something that for implementation grantees is going to be required. And then all of the other things will just depend on kind of where folks need help, where it'd be the greatest value add. So again, we'll ask you all as the TA recipients to identify places where you have the greatest need so that we can then make sure that we prioritize those things. So that could be anything from guidelines clarification, working with the SGC and state teams to answer questions, to get a better understanding of how guidelines apply to specific situations on the ground. Other things that we can do can also help out with project alignment and integration. So taking community vision and then making sure that they fit within the criteria, the guidelines, and all of that. We can also talk through project eligibility and readiness so that you all know whether or not it's going to fly or not, or have at least the best sense that you can before you submit the application. We can also do budget review, talk through those transformative climate elements that SGC staff just went over. We can also provide mapping assistance to help clearly explain what your project area includes, what are some of the features within it, and some of the opportunities that you all are trying to see realized on the ground. And then the last piece is also working with partnership engagement and making sure that folks are coordinated and kind of moving along in the same direction. So that's again, this is a menu of options. It will tailor this to meet your needs, and it's not an exclusive list. So if you have a need that doesn't feel like it's represented there, come talk to us and we'll help you work out how we might be able to support that. All right, and I went over this a little bit, but the work plan overview will just highlight what the tasks are, some proposed deadlines, and who's going to be responsible for moving those things forward. We understand that this is a flexible process, so this is really going to be our guideposts moving forward, but we just want to make sure that everyone's clear on what to expect, who's doing what, and when we can roughly expect to get things for review and feedback. We'll also, like I mentioned, be shipping that to you all so that you can fill it out. And with that, as a motorcycle just rolls by, I'm going to turn it over to Kevin Roden so that he can talk a little bit about the GHG applications.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm Kevin Roden, and my organization, Community Development Resource Group, is the greenhouse gas advisor for this entire program. We do work with all of the applicants, and we all do all of your GHG calculations together, which is different from some of the other Strategic Growth Council programs. We don't want to get everyone distracted today with GHGs, but the bottom line is the GHGs are 20 out of the 205 points, so about 10%. And in our experience over the last 3 seasons working with TCC, we have really learned how to help applicants understand the GHG implications of their proposed projects. And the goal is to really help you drill down on the specific things that you're going to need to do to get GHG reductions. And I'm going to leave it at that because we have lots of other things to talk about, but we're really excited to work with everybody, and we'll be here to answer questions later.
Thank you, Kevin. All right, and just one last note here on technical assistance. So we also have the opportunity for a local community-based organization to be a TA provider. So this will enable someone who is within your community who may not be involved in the TCC or who is not involved directly in the TCC application itself to provide some technical assistance, learn a bit more about the program, and support your team as you're developing your application. So this can include support on things like facilitation and engagement. It can include things like administrative coordination, more of the day-to-day management that our team won't do, but that someone closer to the ground might be able to support on. Again, with partnership development and coordinating entities who need to work together to do the application. Folks who are just geographically closer and have local subject matter expertise, know the communities, know the folks and the players involved. And then folks who might be able to support in identifying some of the key stakeholders, again, going back to the point of knowing the local communities. And so for that local TA provider, they would need to fit into these criteria. So it'd have to be someone who, or an organization that's a nonprofit entity or that is sponsored by a nonprofit entity. They'd have to be local, have expertise in the project area. And then they'd also have to demonstrate some sort of expertise working with priority populations. And then they'd have to be interested in application development. So actually helping you all produce the TCC application. And so if you all have someone in mind who, again, isn't going to be part of your TCC project, right? But who might be able to assist in developing an application, then talk to us and let us know who that group is. You can make a recommendation to our TA team, and then we'll talk with SGC to work through to make sure that they fit the provided criteria that I just went over. Again, this is something where we've got limited funding. So like the application, like the survey responses, it's better to get in queue early so that we can start getting a lay of the land and understand what the different needs are so that we can allocate resources accordingly. And with that, I believe we're done with the TA section.
Great. Thank you, Richard. Appreciate this. So yes, now we will move on to highlight a round 3 planning grantee, who's Porterville Unified School District. That's the effect that I have that effect on glass. Thank you. And they can give you a good point of reference working within a rural community. And then, so they'll give a little bit of background of their projects, and then reminder that they will also be in the breakout room to answer any specific questions that you may have. So yeah, I'll pass it on to Jen, right, Jen?
Yeah.
Great.
Hi, my name's Jen. I work with the Porterville Unified School District and the nonprofit Climate Action Pathways for Schools to implement our planning grant. So for a little bit of context, Porterville is a small agricultural community in the Central Valley. It's located between Fresno and Bakersfield. We're working specifically with the school district instead of the main fundee is the school district instead of a city. So just to give some background on PUSD, they have 22 schools with 14 career technical education programs, which is a really interesting and fascinating part of their school district. It has about over 14,000 students, and the demographics of the area are primarily Latinos. The overall goal of our planning grant is to develop a 10-year climate action plan for PUSD, where we can hopefully reduce the greenhouse gas emissions by 80%. And this will have additional great benefits for public health, the environment, and then we're also hoping that by doing all of this, we can expand economic opportunities for the students of PUSD, because the organization that I work for, Climate Action Pathways for Schools, provides an internship program for students. So they get in on the ground floor of trying to implement and design all of these projects. If you can go to the next slide. So our planning grant has 4 key aspects. The first being project coordination and community engagement. This included doing a broad-based community survey of parents, teachers, and students at PUSD. It also included doing as many community engagement events as we could to get feedback and advice from the broader Porterville community. It also had an energy efficiency and renewable energy plan for buildings, a bus and fleet transit plan, as well as an active transportation plan to hopefully make the streets of Porterville safer. And we have a short 1-minute video of some of our students talking a little bit more about our projects. So I think they're gonna cue that up for you.
Hi, I'm Mariana, and we are students from Porterville working on CAPS on our district's energy and sustainability program.
I'm Elijah. Ariana and myself are working on a zero net energy program for 22 schools.
Hi, I'm Sophia.
And my name is Anayeli. Sophia and myself have been working on a program to make walking and biking to school safer and more common.
Hi, I'm Samara, and I work with a team of students to promote energy conservation at our elementary, middle, and high schools.
Hi, I'm Jay. I'm working on a team to diligently track all of our district's 20 solar systems.
Within our transportation program, we are working to convert our district's 40 diesel buses to zero emissions electric school buses.
To do this, we are helping to analyze fuel and mileage data to see how much money the district can save through electrification.
Thank you, and we hope you join us on this journey.
So yeah, that was some of our really involved students, and they have been amazing in this whole process and helping us out, and have gotten some really good skills that they can take on to them for career and college. If you can go to the next slide, please. And then throughout the year, about 1.5 years, we've been working on our planning grant. We've had some great lessons learned. While the main grantee is the school district, we also have been working with the city of Porterville and the county governments, particularly with our transportation related deliverables. And we found that a stronger collaboration with them, along with other partners during our grant process, made our entire planning grant a lot stronger, our findings a lot stronger. We were able to have a broader scope and reach more people. We also got a ton of great feedback and advice from TCC and the SGC staff when we were struggling with some of the community engagement aspects of our deliverables, and they were able to connect us with previous recipients for an interactive GIS survey that we're going to be implementing in the next week or two, and making sure that if anyone is awarded this, we highly recommend you use the resources that Jerry and Brendan and TCC and SGC can provide you. They can definitely make your entire planning process a lot easier, a lot stronger, and definitely work on building those collaborations with stakeholders, partners, whoever it is that you need to advance your planning grant. It's been an incredible process for us, and we're incredibly grateful to TCC and SGC for allowing us to and funding this planning grant. It's been incredible, so thank you. I think I'll be with the breakout groups which are coming up next, so I'm available to answer any questions if anyone has any questions.